3 homers. On Tuesday night, the Yankees hit 3 of the game's first 5 pitches out to right field. The Cubs shut out the Pirates 9-0. Shota Imanaga improved to 3-1. He struck out 3 and allowed 6 hits over 5 innings. The Guardians beat the Twins 2-1. Kyle Manzardo hit a homer in the 9th to win it. The Phillies got by the Nationals 7-6. The Royals beat the Rays 3-1 in Tampa. The Red Sox scored a 10-2 win at Toronto. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Lowe's helps refresh your garden in time for Mother's Day. Right now, get 4 bags of 1.5 cubic foot Scott's Naturescapes mulch for just $10. Plus, select 1.5 gallon annuals hanging baskets make the perfect gift. Now 2 for only $15. The best garden starts with great deals. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/7. Selection varies by location. While supplies last, discount taken at time of purchase.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it, try no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
If you want to be an alpha,
you've got to get the winning edge.
It's kind of a necessary ingredient if you want to lead the pack. So mark your territory
with the winning edge.
You're in the big leagues. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Plenty to dive into here over this hour up until 1 p.m. Eastern. We take an early look at the 2026 NFL Draft. We talk some big news around the National Football League, and of course, it will lead to some college football conversations as well up until 1 p.m. Eastern. Lisi, great to be with you as always. A lot to get into here today on Football Full Circle, all a part of SportsGrid Radio in Sirius XM Channel 159.
Yeah, and I took a look last night about some of the specials for some of the rookies, Cam Yards, passing totals, Travis Hunter, if he gets a touchdown and an interception in his first game, I think it's 16-1. So now we have the opportunity to digest the NFL draft, see where it relates and correlates to the odds market and futures, and see if we can make some value or pick off some value and get some CLV before the next couple of months. You know, we've seen drastic changes from just the offseason over the past few seasons in college and NFL action, and why not do it? You know, once now we have a better understanding about how these teams look offensively and defensively, knowing about the offseason moves, knowing about the players that they picked up this past weekend in terms of the draft. Now we have a better understanding about who's contenders and who's pretenders. So this is the offseason talk that'll basically carry us for the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, no doubt about it, right? It is slower in the football calendar as of this moment. We've got the NFL schedule release date coming our way in just a little bit. I believe 2 weeks from today, Wednesday, May 14th. It is the final day in April. It is a Wednesday as well. So it's kind of that portion, Joe, at the end of the NFL draft where you start to look forward to the upcoming 2025 season and beyond. But we start with some big news today out of the National Football League. The NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and specifically defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 in response to Jax Ulbrich, who is Jeff's son, and the prank call that he made and led to Shedeur Sanders. So the Falcons disciplined for $250K, and Ulbrich specifically, Joe, faces a $100,000 fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and that's basically what it comes down to. Is it a slap on the wrist? Absolutely. But again, you know, you're talking about, you know, the way they disrupted the draft and you know, just the negativity surrounding the Atlanta Falcons, surrounding his son. And, you know, we understand kids make pranks, but the way it got highlighted as it related to multiple players, not just Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, you have to take, some sort of, uh, control back, right? You have to take some sort of, reprimand. And again, it is private information. Shedeur had a phone number that wasn't listed. It was only given out due to Jeff Ulbrich and his release and the organization's release. So something had to be done. Now, do they change the procedure potentially moving forward? We'll see. But again, this time it didn't lead to anything serious, right? There's always the potential when you're giving out personal information where all it takes is one type of situation, unfortunately, that could go wrong. And, things could really seriously spiral downward. So you don't want to see that. You want to get ahead of it. And I think the Atlanta Falcons and the league took appropriate action.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation about this. Obviously, an incredibly dumb, idiotic, and selfish thing for Jax Ulbrich to do. He tried to ruin a moment that should be the most special weekend for a player, for a prospect. And obviously, given the context of what was happening to Shedeur Sanders throughout the entirety of the 2025 NFL draft, of course, it was more of a thorn in his side. But as we learned, Joe, at the end of it, when we heard the story and how it came to be that Jax Ulbrich, visiting his parents' home, had found a tablet that had some of this proprietary information, had accessed it without the knowing of his father, Jeff, the new DC in Atlanta, that it clearly was on Jax Ulbrich. Again, a selfish, idiotic, immature move by the 21-year-old son of the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. He apologized to Shedeur Sanders. He released a statement saying that he had been in contact with Sanders and his family. That was it. Move on. Expecting some sort of penalty or discipline from the National Football League, and the Falcons will face that. There were some that called for Jeff Ulbrich's job. There were some that called for him to be disciplined in terms of missing out on games. That was a little bit too much as well. It was a dumb and idiotic prank that quite literally will cost the Atlanta Falcons and Jeff Ulbrich. Now, if you are Jeff's 21-year-old son, you better not head home for a couple of weeks, my friend, because you are in for one of the great tongue lashings this world has ever seen. Joe, there's the joke, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, that parents give to their kids. Oh, he's disappointed and mad. If I had ever cost my father $100,000, it would not have been just a tongue lashing, mind you. I would have not been able to live under that roof for the next month. So, I think Jax Ulbrich is in for his own personal discipline from his father.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what you're talking about in terms of discipline and obviously setting the record straight. And it's not like he's a 14 or 15-year-old kid. He's in college. He attends Ole Miss. You expect him to have more responsibility. And just knowing that Jeff Ulbrich is now an assistant, right? He was the interim head coach for the New York Jets last year. It didn't work out. He didn't get the job. He's with a new organization. And you want to obviously start fresh, even though you might know the coaches and ownership. You still want to start fresh with the potential to grow within the organization, and this sort of impedes that, right? And at the end of the day, it hurts his son potentially too. If his dad has given up $100,000, that's less that could trickle down to the kids, right? So we'll see how it plays out. Shocked, you get a tongue lashing, huh? The picks, I don't know. The picks with dad were, he didn't give you a tongue lashing with all the $100,000.
Listen, man, when I was a senior in high school, I got a speeding ticket because I was running late to work. I did a 53 in a 45. Not, again, above the speed limit, right? Maybe not the most reckless driving ever. A cop on his motorcycle who I could not see pulled me over, gave me a speeding ticket. Unfortunate, right? I was only 17 years old. I was probably into my driver's license for about 8 to 9 months by that point. I knew it wasn't great. I knew when I came home that day after football practice that my father, Ricky Steve, was going to be a little bit upset with me. I walked upstairs. He was waiting in his room. I tell you, Lisi guy, he put the fear of God in me that day. I've never seen my father so mad, angry, disappointed, all in one for not respecting the rules of the road. So if that speeding ticket that I think cost $180 had a couple more zeros on it, I can only imagine. So, yes, I do believe that Jax Ulbrich is in for some discipline from his father.
Yeah, we'll see, right? And we talk about.
You're telling me that Papa Lisi, if you were an idiot in high school, I mean, tongue lashing be damned. You might have taken a couple of pops.
I don't know about that, but there would be a couple of expletives. I've been called a couple of expletives in my time. Not once, not twice, multiple times. And we could go through my stories, being obviously a little bit older than you. So, yeah, it's happened. It still happens. Still to this day. So, it never gets old.
What would you do if one of your kids say, hey, I need $100,000? You'd probably be like, all right, let me whip up this 8-leg parlay and get it to you real quick.
That over the course of the last 2 years with the younger one. I don't know, man. Every day is another situation.
Every day is the NFL coming down to find Joe Lisi for something else. So the Atlanta Falcons face some discipline, Jeff Ulbrich personally, and hopefully we can put this prank calling thing behind us. A dumb and idiotic move. We must learn from those life lessons. Let's talk the 2026 NFL Draft early on here on FFC up next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. And we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that 5.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. General Motors is recalling nearly 600,000 vehicles across its Cadillac, Chevrolet, and GMC brands in the U.S. due to potential manufacturing defects that can cause engine failure. The recall covers certain Cadillac Escalades and Escalade ESVs, Chevy Silverado 1500s, Suburbans, and Tahoes, as well as GMC Sierra 1500s, Yukon, and Yukon XLs between model years 2021 and 24. Florida is poised to become the second state to ban fluoride in public drinking water. Florida lawmakers gave final approval to the bill Tuesday after Utah became the first state to pass the ban last month. New York is expected to create a new criminal charge to levy against people who wear a mask while committing another crime. The proposal is set to be included in a sweeping state budget bill. The measure would make it a misdemeanor for a person to use a mask to conceal their identity when committing a crime. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
It's Macy's Friends and Family Sale. Hurry in for insider deals on must-have spring styles from your favorite brands, like an extra 30% off new dresses, handbags, and accessories from Karl Lagerfeld Paris, Donna Karan New York, Avec La Vie, and more. Plus, get 15% off fragrances, beauty, and skincare, too. It's not only the best time to shop for yourself, it's also the best time to shop early for Mother's Day. Don't miss Friends and Family, going on now at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/apply. That's ethos.com/apply.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
go find a horseshoe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. It might seem too early, but really it is never too early to look at the odds for next year's NFL Draft because it paints a picture of what we are going to see this upcoming season, both around the National Football League and, of course, Joe, the brightest stars in the college football landscape. Had we, and I'm sure we did, but had we done this at this stage last year in the week following the 2024 NFL Draft, we would have talked about the promise of Quinn Ewers, of Carson Beck, of Shedeur Sanders, probably having the 3 best prices to be a first overall selection. A guy like James Pierce Jr. or Mykel Williams out of Georgia. How drastically different, Joe, the odds looked back then for the number 1 overall selection than what we saw by the time we got to Thursday night this past week in Green Bay. It wasn't like Cam Ward was 500 to 1 that he was some unheard of entity. He was the quarterback at Miami after a successful 2-year run at Washington State. I think his number was 18 to 1, 20 to 1, still one of the 10 or 12 best prices to be that first overall pick. But how drastically different the odds can be now for what we will see in just a little bit shy of 12 months from now. But it will paint a picture, Joe, for what we are going to see throughout the college football and NFL seasons in 2025.
Yeah, it is interesting when you look, and we know the usual suspects at the top, right? Arch Manning plus 240. You know, Drew Aller's up there, 5 to 1, Nussmeier, the three potential best quarterbacks in all of college football. You have Lenore Sellers there. It's some of the defensive players potentially that can make some noise, right? Ruben Bain from Miami, you have Keldrick Falk for Auburn. Can they do enough from a defensive perspective where it is in the offseason right now to close the gap? I'm not so sure about that, right? So if we're looking at potential value and we're looking at, who could potentially step up and make some noise, it would only, to me, early on, be offensive players, Ben, that could elevate their game in the first half of the season that could close the gap. I think defensively, that's asking a lot for Falk and Bain that are like 12 to 1 and 25 to 1 to really make any noise. I'll put it into perspective. Harold Perkins, after he had that freshman phenom season, was basically like 100 to 1 in the offseason. That's not bad value if you're getting that star defensive player at 100 to 1 or $1.50 to 1 like we've seen in recent years. 12 to 1, anything under 30 to 1 for a defensive player, that's not value to me in any capacity.
Yeah, Joe, when Cam Ward was selected first overall on Thursday in Green Bay, it was the third straight draft a quarterback had gone first overall. It was the 7th time in the last 8 years. We have seen that often be the case at the top of NFL drafts, especially as of late. Of course, that does go into the idea of who is drafting first overall. Often, if you are a bad team, you don't have the quarterback spot figured out. So the team that is drafting first overall come 2026 really depends on what they need at the quarterback spot. Now, there could be a team that has the quarterback figured out and just was injured, or at least everything else was so poor, they are drafting first overall. But Lisi, as we go by win totals, right? 2 lowest win totals in the National Football League this year, both at 5.5 with pretty hefty juice on the under. The Giants, the worst at minus 140 to the 5.5. And the Browns at minus 135 to the under of 5.5. Both, of course, drafting some notable quarterbacks during 2025. But if Jackson Dart is not the real deal and it's an entirely new regime in New York, yeah, they could go after a quarterback for sure. Or if it's the Browns, who did draft Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, but of course did not use a first or second round pick on a QB, then yeah, they could go for a quarterback as well. There's also the idea, Joe, if a team is set at the quarterback spot at first overall, they could trade out of that if this quarterback draft class is really solid. And we do this every year, right? We look at the crop of quarterbacks for the following NFL draft, and we are wowed by the optimism and the potential of what could be. The 5 best prices to go first overall for next year's draft all play QB. Arch Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller. That 4th spot is Lenore Sellers and Cade Klubnik, all very talented quarterbacks, Joe. But we kind of said the same thing this year, this point last year, where some of those quarterbacks did not develop. Quinn Ewers in the 7th round, Shedeur Sanders, a 5th rounder, and of course, Carson Beck still remains in school. So you never know how it's going to play out. But I do think when you look at this crop of quarterbacks, there should be a lot of excitement for this upcoming college football season.
Yeah, now the top 3 are prototypical drop-back passers, right? Aller, Arch Manning, and Nussmeier, right? So you have the prototypical drop-back passer that you could say, and I know Arch is mobile as well. I'm not going to take that away from him, but Lenore Sellers is a different type of animal. He's a big, quarterback, 6'3", about 2.25. Came on in terms of Shane Beamer's offense. Really one of the best teams in terms of all of college football last year, beats up on Clemson, and the ability to take the game over in terms of the RPO game. because of his size, is almost like Cam Newton to a degree, right? So it depends on the type of quarterback that you want, moving forward for the upcoming draft. We think it's going to be Arch Manning. He should hit the ground running this year.
Yeah.
We know about the playmakers that they have and how they elevated the program. But again, it is intriguing because, Klubnik was a guy that was almost dead and buried in Clemson, and because of how he performed last year, he stepped up and really showcased, all right, maybe this guy does have it. We'll see what he can bring to the table. But if you're asking me, it would be to get Arch at plus money is still good value. And I take a shot on Nussmeier just because we know about the wide receiver room. It's going to be potentially the best in all of college football. He's going to throw it 50 times a game, potentially. He has the opportunity to put up Joe Burrow type of numbers, Ben. I don't know if they win a national championship, but that's plus 360 isn't bad.
And we know the numbers can be there for Garrett Nussmeier, plus 360, that price, second best. And I'm not saying this would be the entire draft philosophy of the Saints next year, but where is Garrett's dad now? Doug, he is the OC in New Orleans under Kellen Moore. A few more thoughts on some of these prospects as we talk some college football for 2025 up next.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1939, Lou Gehrig sets a major league record, playing in his 2,130th consecutive game. It would be his final appearance in pinstripes, as the Iron Horse's career and life were cut short because of ALS.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
RoboBee, an amazing technological achievement by Harvard University's microbiotics laboratory, is a 1-inch long, 80-gram synthetic insect intended to intelligently swarm and pollinate like real bees.
Frankly, the masses wouldn't appreciate it.
Which up to now has only had one problem.
I don't have any legs and can't land without killing myself.
However, due to a new Harvard evolutionary biology breakthrough study of insect locomotion,
bees got knees.
RoboBee can land with the graceful legs of the crane fly. One additional great feature of the RoboBee?
Huh?
No stinger. Follow me at Chicapalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Carver and Lisi.
Just straight bets this time. Straight bets.
How about this? Why don't we put them with the golf? Each one of them with the golf.
No, it's too early. The golf starts
it's too early.
No, I'm not tying up the money for 3 days.
Never too early to put it with the golf.
I'm not tying up the money for 3 days. I'm not doing it.
Tying up the money. You're sick.
It's Carver and Lisi with Mike Carver and Joe Lisi. Weekdays 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. There comes a point when the chips are down.
To coin a phrase.
When the only thing you can do is stop and wait. Do you want to face that moment prepared?
Or rely on luck?
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Lisi Guy, if I were to offer you a wager right now, a yes or no, Arch Manning is going to be the first overall pick in 2026, which side would you wager on? Would you be doing so with a minus money or a plus money price?
I would probably bet against it just because that's asking a lot to go wire to wire, right? A bunch of things can happen throughout the regular season, and, there's always the potential, we hope not, that it could always play down to the level of competition and maybe underachieve, right? And if that's the case, and another guy comes through, even a defensive player or a team need that doesn't need a quarterback, you're always in the driver's seat. So, for me to bet Arch Manning 1 overall, I mean, 250 isn't enough for me. It's not. He's deserving to be there in the offseason, but it's not enough. I would need like 5 or 6 to 1. I would need something in that area, 650, 7. I would need more like, over that 5 to 1 threshold to say, you know what, it's worth a shot. So much can go wrong, and you don't know what the regular season brings. We don't know if New Orleans or the New York Giants potentially are going to be one of the worst teams. We're a team that's desperate of a quarterback. We just don't know that. And I think that's the problem, that when you make that bet, it seems like he's a surefire first rounder based off the pedigree and what we got. But there's so many unknowns that could go wrong that bet could all of a sudden be 20 to 1 in a heartbeat.
You're not necessarily betting against the prospect in Arch Manning. I do believe he will be in consideration to be that first overall pick, or at least worthy of that kind of designation. But you're not entirely sure what the draft order looks like. I would agree. Plus 240 on Arch Manning, the new signal caller in Texas, a new era in Austin. Garrett Nussmeier plus 360. Second best price, of course, back as the starter for LSU for a second consecutive year. He has bided his time behind Jaden Daniels. Last year saw some success, but also some inconsistent and turnover-worthy play that needs to be a lot better this year. But the offensive numbers, Joe, without a doubt, should be there this year in Baton Rouge. Drew Aller at a 5 to 1 price. We'll come back to Aller in just a moment. Lenora Sellers has that fourth best number currently at plus 650, and Cade Klubnik at plus 750. Klubnik really fascinates me, Joe, because I really do think Clemson has the chance to get back atop the pantheon of the ACC. Of course, they did beat SMU in that ACC championship game, but were not favored necessarily to do so through a good majority of the year. Had Miami simply dispatched of Syracuse, easier said than done, Clemson would not have had the opportunity to play in that ACC title game. They do, they win it, they take the automatic bid as one of the 5 highest ranked conference champs. They play in the college football playoff. They got beat by 2 touchdowns against Texas. But a lot of optimism finally, Joe, in Clemson, South Carolina on the offensive side of the ball. It was the defense that was an issue last year, particularly in stopping the run. There's a lot of production returning on both sides of the ball for Dabo Swinney in 2025. And Cade Klubnik, who threw for 36 touchdowns to just 6 INTs a season ago. Joe, you have to be feeling optimistic about Clemson, and frankly, because of Klubnik in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, the ability to stretch the football down the field, that was something that Clemson struggled with a couple of years ago. They struggled, and it started week number 1. When they played the Georgia Bulldogs, they were handcuffed and they couldn't move the football over the top. They were a run-heavy offense and relied on defense, and that really changed last year. And you want to know something? Against one of the best secondaries in all of college football last year, even though they lost the game by 14 points, Clemson moved the football on a very good Texas defense. And if that can continue this year, they're going to have a shot. They've taken in transfer talent for the first time in a very long time during the Dabo days, and that really will benefit them defensively and offensively as well. Now, we'll see the progression of Klubnik, but if we're talking Clemson big picture, Clemson over the win total, Clemson to potentially be another dark horse to challenge for, semifinal or a national championship run based off of last year, I think it's worthy more this year than in the past 2 or 3 seasons, Ben.
9.5 is that win total for the Tigers. The under a slight bit of juice at minus 122. But even with that, Joe, Clemson the favorites to win the ACC crown once again. Plus 170, half the price of Miami, who has that second best number at plus 340. A lot more coming your way on Football Full Circle up next.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
The Yankees became the first team in Major League history to open a game with 3 consecutive home runs more than once in a season when Trent Grisham, Aaron Judge, and Ben Rice went deep off Baltimore's Kyle Gibson in the first inning Tuesday night. The Yankees blew out the Orioles 15-3. The Yankees started the bottom of the first of their March 29th game against Milwaukee with 3 homers in a row. Paul Goldschmidt, Cody Bellinger, and Judge needed only 3 pitches to hit 3 homers. On Tuesday night, the Yankees hit 3 of the game's first 5 pitches out to right field. The Cubs shut out the Pirates 9-0. Shota Imanaga improved to 3-1. He struck out 3 and allowed 6 hits over 5 innings. The Guardians beat the Twins 2-1. Kyle Manzardo hit a homer in the 9th to win it. The Phillies got by the Nationals 7-6. The Royals beat the Rays 3-1 in Tampa. The Red Sox scored a 10-2 win at Toronto. Save big when you bundle auto and home, renters, or condo with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Lowe's helps refresh your garden in time for Mother's Day. Right now, get 4 bags of 1.5 cubic foot Scott's Naturescapes mulch for just $10. Plus, select 1.5 gallon annuals hanging baskets make the perfect gift. Now 2 for only $15. The best garden starts with great deals. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/7. Selection varies by location. While supplies last, discount taken at time of purchase.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it dry no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Joe, the Clemson Tigers have won 8 of the last 10 ACC championships under Dabo Swinney. They will look to make it 9 of the last 11. They are booked as the plus 170 favorites to win the ACC. We were talking about it, Joe, from the perspective of Cade Klubnik coming off a career year in 2024. 36 touchdowns to only 6 INTs. His first year north of 3,000 passing yards as well. Joe also added 7 rushing touchdowns, 43 total TDs for the Clemson quarterback, who has the consistency, the congruency, now in his 3rd full year as a starter under his OC in Garrett Riley. There's a lot to love this year in Death Valley, no doubt about it. And Joe, the second best price not named a quarterback to be the first overall pick in 2026, that would be TJ Edwards, the outstanding edge rusher for the Tigers, about to enter his 3rd year of college football. 11 sacks, top 10 in the country a season ago for Clemson, really for a Tigers defense that had been the thing holding them up the past few seasons prior to last year when the offense held their end of the bargain and the defense started to struggle as well. So, Joe, there is a lot of thought that you had Will Help in the transfer portal, the edge rusher out of Purdue. You have TJ Edwards on the other side. This Clemson team seems to be the team to knock off in the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You know, they've been there. They just haven't had marquee talent on the perimeter from an offensive perspective, haven't had elite wide receiver talent, haven't had elite running back talent, and it's been basically the offense and defensive lines that have carried them over the past few seasons to get to 9 wins and 10 wins, but haven't been able to challenge the likes of Ohio State, Alabama, and some of the SEC caliber schools just because of a lack of speed. And that's really what it comes down to. You know, you look at the game a couple of years ago, I think it was very telling against Georgia. They open up, they go toe-to-toe from a defensive perspective, 6-3, and it looks like, hey, great, they're going to be in this game. Offensively handcuffed because they just couldn't challenge Georgia over the top. That has changed now. You know, that's changed from an offensive philosophy perspective. With Riley, it's also changed because of the type of talent that they have. Now, can Dabo, that sort of has the bullseye on his back, Yeah, they made the college football playoff almost by default, knocking off SMU, right? If things didn't fall out in terms of the regular season the last week and the championship games, they might have been on the outside looking in, but they made the best of the opportunity. Can they get over the 9.5? Yeah, I probably would make that bet. But they're still, I think, a player or two away from really saying, you know what? Yeah, they could go toe-to-toe with Ohio State. I think they can win maybe one game in the playoff, but it's still great value. You're getting great odds because it's just people are down on Clemson overall as a whole, Ben.
14-1, Joe, is the price on the Tigers to win a national championship, tied for the 7th best number alongside Alabama. Let's not forget how last season played out for the Tigers. They were the underdogs in the ACC championship, but did edge out SMU. They reached the college football playoff. No active FBS head coach has more CFP appearances in history than that of Dabo Swinney. Make it 7 for him in the 11 total years of the college football playoff last season. They have that postseason pedigree. There is no doubt about it. And Joe, you're right. Do they have the calling cards to be a team that reaches the Final Four, that gets to a national championship game with the likes of the big dogs right now in the Big Ten and the SEC? That remains to be seen, but I do believe they are the deserved frontrunners in the ACC at this moment. Last year, the frontrunners in the ACC was Florida State, and of course, we all know how that played out. But Joe, when you look at the schedule for the Clemson Tigers, they have not been shy of playing those non-conference marquee matchups in week number 1. That's what we'll see that opening Saturday of the year in week number 1. Clemson, LSU. Who has the real Death Valley? It's in Clemson, South Carolina, inside Memorial Stadium. What a matchup that's going to be, Joe. It's going to be top 10. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, and if you're looking at the Heisman perspective, right, one of those guys is going to elevate to another level after that game. So,
No doubt.
it really matters not just from that, but the Heisman value. It matters as well in terms of showing out. And that's going to be huge if Clemson can knock off LSU. And I'll be honest with you, LSU loses that game, Brian Kelly's going to hear it because they started slow again last year against USC. They won an SEC West title in year number 1. And it's just felt like they've had players, but they've been regressing ever since he's gotten there, never been able to get out of neutral. And I'll tell you, fans in Death Valley, and I'm talking about the ones in Baton Rouge, are going to be all over Brian Kelly and that team, knowing that the type of talent that they have. What? I'll be there. I might be there. I might be.
I was going to say, are you going to be a little bit more invested in the Bayou Bengals now moving forward?
When you say more invested, what does that mean? And what does that entail, Ben? What are you talking about?
Like, personally, your feelings of affection toward Baton Rouge, are they going to be heightened given the fact, I don't want to reveal any information that you don't
could
feel
reveal it. It's okay. You reveal. Good.
Joe's daughter, who is a huge college football fan, biggest fan of college football today outside of anybody that works for the SportsGrid network. We've had a live studio audience about 3 times, and it's been Joe's daughter in attendance in our New Jersey studios. So she was brought up to adore college football. She's attending Baton Rouge. She's attending LSU starting next year. So personal feelings of affection, Joe, to Baton Rouge, to LSU. You've always been a supporter of the Bayou Bengals, but will those go stronger entering 2025?
Absolutely. I'll be leading the charge potentially. I tell you that right now. I'm going down in June, so I'll get to walk the locker room and the football field, maybe pick some grass like their former coach, Les Miles, back in the day. What was that, 2005 when he ran the reverse against Nick Saban and Alabama? What a game that was, I'll tell you. But, I'll be look, I always thought that Brian Kelly was a great fit. He showcased that in year 1. But you can't lay up. It's LSU. You have more key talent offensively. You potentially have one of the top quarterbacks, and you do in all of college football. We talk about wide receiver depth. They are number 1 across multiple, just experts and breakdowns about just positional talent. The concern has been the defense with Blake Baker. He got them to a certain level, couldn't get them over the hump. He's got to do that this year, Ben. Otherwise, I'm telling you, fans are upset. 8-4 is unacceptable at LSU.
Yeah, it certainly is, Joe. And to Clemson's credit, they have often started with a marquee matchup week number 1 or early in the non-con. Same story for the Bayou Bengals in now the 4 years under Brian Kelly. But of course, it has not gone the way for the Tigers in the first 3 seasons of the BK era. Losses to Florida State in each of his first 2 years, dramatically so by a single point on a missed extra point, I believe it was, back in 2022, 2023, routed by Jordan Travis and FSU. And then, of course, last year, Joe, losing to USC in Las Vegas. They are hoping for a better start right away. And speaking of some of those Heisman odds, Joe, what's interesting about the NFL number 1 overall draft picks, it's slightly different in the comparison of being a great college quarterback to being a successful NFL talent. Arch Manning tied as a co-favorite right now to win the Heisman Trophy at 8-1, but is in front of Garrett Nussmeier in terms of those NFL draft odds. It's Nussmeier and Manning plus 800 co-favorites to win the Heisman Trophy. Klubnik, a 9-1 price, Joe, third best. How about a wide receiver? Jeremiah Smith, fourth best price to win the Heisman Trophy. Sensational. Julian Sayin is quarterback in Columbus at 13-1, has the fifth best price. Lenoris Sellers, DJ Lagway, Drew Aller, all at 16-1.
Yeah, and Dante Moore at 19-1. Can he elevate his game with Dan Lanning? This is it. I'm juicy, all juiced up for college football.
Indeed, Lacey Guy will continue the conversations up next, live right here on Football Full Circle. We'll talk some LSU. We'll talk an SEC outlook on the other side of the break.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. New York is expected to create a new criminal charge to levy against people who wear a mask while committing another crime. The proposal is set to be included in a sweeping state budget bill. The measure would make it a misdemeanor for a person to use a mask to conceal their identity when committing a crime. General Motors is recalling nearly 600,000 vehicles across its Cadillac, Chevrolet, and GMC brands in the U.S. due to potential manufacturing defects that can cause engine failure. The recall covers certain Cadillac Escalades and Escalade ESVs, Chevy Silverado 1500s, Suburbans, and Tahoes, as well as GMC Sierra 1500s, Yukon, and Yukon XLs between model years 2021 and 24. Florida is poised to become the second state to ban fluoride in public drinking water. Florida lawmakers gave final approval to the bill Tuesday after Utah became the first state to pass the ban last month. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Here's Comedians and Sketchers Getting Comfortable, presented by Hands-Free Skechers Slip-Ins.
Hey, I'm Bobby Slayton, and I'm here with my pal, comedian, and Skechers ambassador, Mr. Howie Mandel.
Why did it take so long to invent something as amazing as Slip-Ins? I know it seems simple, but it took Skechers to invent a better pair of shoes.
Yep, with Skechers Slip-Ins, you just step in and go. You don't have to touch your shoes. And by the way, Slip-Ins are for the whole family, men, women, and kids. In all your favorite Skechers styles, find Skechers Slip-Ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Remember when you were thankful you could just get AM and FM?
Things have progressed.
Now even an app on your phone can give you a 21st century thrill with that little drop of heaven called
the deposit notification.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. So Joe Lisi has always been a backer of the Bayou Bengals down there in Baton Rouge, but this year might have some more personal investment outside of the financial ones. Lisi Guy, LSU, tied for the fourth best price to win the SEC at plus 950. Garrett Nussmeier is back for a second full year as a starting quarterback. If the defense under Blake Baker can improve. At times, we saw a little bit of life out of that defense, but still a lot of the same issues that plagued them in Jaden Daniels' Heisman Trophy winning season, now 2 years ago. Where do you fall on LSU this year, Lisa Guy? Are they an 8-4 team? Are they a 9-3 college football playoff at large consideration? Are they a 10-2 SEC champion consideration? Where do you put LSU for 2025?
I put them at 10-2, and they should have, in my opinion, the second best price behind Texas in the SEC. And the reason why I say that is we know about quarterbacks driving the bus. They have the second best quarterback potentially in all of college football. Love him or hate him, Garrett Nussmeier is battle-tested. He's a veteran. When you look at Georgia with Gunnar Stockton and you look at Ty Simpson in terms of Alabama, the experience isn't there. I can't put both of those teams higher than LSU based off the experience at quarterback and just knowing that the playmakers that they have. I would make it Texas 1, LSU 2, Georgia 3, Alabama 4, and that's not based on a homer pick. That is based off experience and the type of transfer talent that they have from an offensive perspective in Baton Rouge. They get Harold Perkins back. Granted, he's coming off an ACL injury, but again, that's a huge boost to that defense. What Blake Baker was able to do in 1 year, they were much more physical. They were coming off the edge. At one point, they had 27 sacks over a 4 or 5 game period. Yeah. That's what you want to see, right? They beat up on Jackson Dart in Ole Miss. The consistency, though, wasn't there at the end of the regular season. Certainly wasn't there when they played Alabama and they got their teeth kicked in. But it's like they almost checked out after they lost that road game to Texas A&M. And that cannot happen this year. They can ill afford a slow start. If they win that game in Death Valley, again, I think they have a very good shot to finish 10-2. That's a 10-2 is a bottom too. They could potentially be an 11-1 football team because of the type of experience they have. But now they have to follow through, and Brian Kelly has to coach this team.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Joe. 24.3 points per game allowed by LSU a season ago. Third worst in the SEC. Only Arkansas and Mississippi State allowed more. That has to be better, right? You have to be closer, even to average, if not elite, if you are going to contend for an SEC title, because the teams in front of them, Joe, to win this gauntlet of a conference are stout for a reason. Texas, the favorite at plus 270. Georgia, a 4-1 price. Alabama at 9-1. And then LSU and Ole Miss tied for that fourth best number at plus 950. There is never an easy schedule, Joe, by any means, within the SEC. Of course, we mentioned the Bayou Bengals start their year on the road at Clemson. But in terms of what we project probably to be the 4 or 5 ranked opponents that will be on LSU's SEC slate this upcoming season, you would say that at least having 3 of those 5 at home is a benefit. Florida, South Carolina, and A&M will all be at home. Road trips to Ole Miss. We'll see what Lane Kiffin has in store with a lot of talent leaving and, of course, having to replace quarterback in Jackson Dart. And we'll see about Alabama in year number 2 under Kalen DeBoer, having to replace the quarterback spot as well. Ty Simpson, by spring practice reports, in line right now to be the starter in Tuscaloosa. So I do agree, Joe, at least in terms of quarterback consistency year over year. We've seen Arch Manning play, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But in terms of proven quarterbacks around the SEC, you're really now kind of looking at Garrett Nussmeier and everybody else. I have a lot of belief in DJ Lagway, but some of that, again, is still more potential. We thought we had one in Tennessee with Nico Iamaleava. He's now in Westwood at UCLA. Joey Aguilar now going to be that quarterback for the Volunteers. In terms of that returning quarterback trust and based on experience, Garrett Nussmeier certainly leads the way in the SEC.
Yeah, but to your point, disrespectful for Florida's number 2 at 20-1. Florida was a team with DJ Lagway that knocked off Ole Miss and LSU down the stretch, both at home, but they're a younger team. Can Napier get them, above the hump to potentially 9 or 10 wins? We'll see. But I mean, a 20-1 number is very disrespectful, along with Shane Beamer in South Carolina. I mean, Lenora Sellers, 17-1. We talk about experience and how it relates to teams just from a defensive perspective. Dylan Stewart and that team coming back. I mean, 17-1. for South Carolina, behind Tennessee, behind A&M. I mean, Ole Miss as well. Ole Miss loses a lot of talent. I mean, let's not forget Harris, right? They lose Walter Nolan defensively. They lose Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
We know it's Lane Kiffin, but again, you still have to put those pieces. You have to put those pieces in place, and they have to consist, and they have to come together as a unit. You can't make that bet for me at plus 950 for Ole Miss. Total disrespectful on A&M, South Carolina, and Florida by the odds perspective.
JG Pegues is who I meant to say for Ole Miss. But, Joe, to your thinking, you know my first win total bet made for 2025 was Florida over 6.5. Heavy juice on the over for the Gators. You might be thinking, why are these guys talking about Florida getting disrespected when their win total has them around a bowl caliber team at most? Well, it's just because of how difficult that schedule is going to be. But, Joe, last year it was the hardest schedule in the country, at least entering the season on paper. And the Gators performed incredibly well under Billy Napier to get to that level. So now you're hoping that having DJ Lagway back and fully healthy, you improve year over year. I've got a lot of belief in the Gators, not just to be a 7-win team, for an 8 or 9-win team in consideration for the SEC championship. Again, Texas, the shortest price. A lot of belief, and rightfully so. And there's a lot of talent that returns to Austin outside of Arch Manning. Michael Taffy, the outstanding safety on the other side, he's back as well. But a lot to like about the Longhorns, Joe, entering this season. A lot to like all around college football. We talked about the odds to be the number 1 overall pick. And there's a guy with the third best price at 5-1 named Drew Allen. And I'm not sure Lisi believes is really in consideration to go first overall. Let's talk Penn State up next.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi. Then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
It's stark but true.
You can either listen to SportsGrid for strategies, odds, and more, or you can pay your bills by digging in your couch cushions for change.
Just be sure to wear gloves.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Penn State now has the third best price to win a national championship in 2025. Tied for the third best number right now for the Nittany Lions alongside Georgia, who is in front, Texas and Ohio State as the reigning champs. Plus 750 is that number, Joe, on the Nittany Lions. There is a lot to like about what is happening in State College, Pennsylvania, year over year entering 2025. There is a lot to be cautious of course, James Franklin in a big game against a ranked foe where the Nittany Lions are booked as an underdog. But in terms of returning talent, how can you not love what you are seeing out of the Nittany Lions? Drew Aller is back. Nicholas Singleton is back. Katron Allen is back. They just added my guy, Trevor Pena, in the transfer portal. The outstanding Syracuse wide receiver now makes his way to Happy Valley on the defensive side of the ball. So much returning talent there as well, led by Dennis Sutton for this team. I mean, Joe, there is a lot of returning pieces in Happy Valley this upcoming season. And because of it, there is a thought that if there was ever a year, which we often ask here, but if there was ever a year, could this be the one for Penn State in 2025?
Yeah, if not now, when, right? That's the question that you ask, right? And I get it. Yeah, offensively, you would think that Drew Aller could take the next step. We know about the physical intangibles and attributes, 6'4", 230 pounds, live arm, but it doesn't relate in terms of big game appearances. And that's where you have to struggle and say that if the rushing attack isn't there, Drew Aller struggles against better defenses. You can look at two games in particular, Ohio State and Notre Dame, right? Ohio State in the regular season, they jump out to a 10-0 lead, and they need Drew Aller to make plays. He can't move the football vertically. And same thing against one of the best secondaries in all of college football in Notre Dame. We know that Ty Warren and the running backs caught footballs, but not one wide receiver caught a pass in that semifinal playoff loss. If you're a top-flight draft pick and you're a team that has a sight set on a national championship, that needs to change drastically. The problem is like you're hoping. I can't bet hope without seeing it. So I would rather bet Penn State middle of the season than I would right here, right now, Ben, because it can only get worse before it gets better. Back to Roadhouse, back in the day, old Roadhouse movie.
I know what Roadhouse is. I do. I do know what Roadhouse is. There is no doubt about it, Joe. Against the teams where Penn State was an underdog in the 2024 college football season. Notre Dame in the college football playoff semifinal. Ohio State in the regular season in Happy Valley. And, of course, against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Drew Aller threw for less than a 60% completion percentage in all three. His best game was against the Ducks, 226, 3 touchdowns, but 2 INTs. Joe, you laid out what he did against the Fighting Irish in the college football playoff semifinal. 12 of 23, $135, and a very costly interception where not a single wide receiver caught a pass. Now, if you are happy about Andy Kotelnicki returning and you have that consistency year over year to learn a system from a bright and creative offensive mind, you look at the hopeful, optimistic, glass half full type of perspective. You add a guy like Trevor Pena there in the wide receiver room as well. There's a lot that returns for Penn State, so you are thrilled by what that could be. But if you're the pessimist, you say, well, there's been a lot of optimism in the last few years, and they've been good. They're going to give you double-digit wins. They're going to back their way into a college football playoff, no doubt. But we're talking winning a national championship or winning a Big Ten title. I still remain hesitant, and I think that is very, very fair. But, Joe, the idea of James Franklin and his top 5, top 10 record being atrocious as it is cannot change until it does. So this would be the year for that to be the case. I do believe Penn State will play in the Big Ten championship game once again, and not just because Ohio State loses as a 3-touchdown favorite to Michigan. I do believe Penn State will be one of those two teams playing for a Big Ten title come early December.
Well, then you should bet the 250, and this is what we said, because obviously, if not now, when? They have the best talent, per se, that they've had in the last 5, 6, 7 seasons, right? And 250 is plus money. You could always hedge if you want, but now that's a right number at 250, because, again, they lose. They're not going to make the college football playoff, and I'll say this, if they're an at-large, they're certainly not going to have an easy ride the way they did last year.
Where you would think at one point, Joe, they're an underdog. In Penn State as a dog under James Franklin, just go look at the numbers. It's not very kind. He's the mastermind of the pigskin. Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. That does it for us today on Football Full Circle. Show returns tomorrow, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.